Welcome to the World Satsanga, held on the 25th of October 2023 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and the Kevin Moore Show. And as usual, I encourage you to go to visit his YouTube site to see what new levels of detail or understandings or in interviews he's done to try to explain different ways of understanding who we are and where we come from in the greater reality. This lecture is based upon a question from one of my readers and students of Traversing the Frequencies. And the question is this: if everything happens in the now, and we can all interact with the now by being connected together because we're all ultimately part of the source, our true energetic selves are individualized sentience from the source, and our aspects or souls are individualized sentience from our true energetic self, etc., then what's the point in us experiencing something in a low frequency environment? What is the actual point of it if we could access everything? So we wouldn't need to, for example, experience learning how to drive or learning how to ski or learning how to fly a car, learning how to fly a plane, or learning how to ride a bicycle, for example, or learning how to pass an exam. What is the point? If we can get everything from being connected and everything is happening in the now, then what is the point of us being incarnate? Well, if you can remember the last Satsanga, the lecture was on trying to understand the now. And I use the real or the role of cinema film, and that each event is basically one of the exposures, and usually there's at least 60 exposures per second. And so in our low frequency environment, we can only experience and understand and focus on one of these exposures, for example. But when we're in the higher frequencies, in our normal environment, which will be a higher frequency within another subdimensional component within a full dimension, significantly higher than where we are now, then we can experience everything concurrently. We can observe and understand every one of those exposures on that roll of cinema film, which will be 60 exposures per second times 60 seconds per minute times 60 minutes per hour times how many hours the film is. Okay, we can experience everything concurrently. We can observe it all concurrently because we're in a higher frequency. We are experiencing things in a completely different way, and what's more, because we're a higher frequency, we have significantly better processing power. Think of it like having the fastest supercomputer when you're in the higher frequencies, and then when you're here in the lower frequencies, you're having to write letters to be able to communicate. So understanding something here is difficult. And we have to, because our processing power is such, our sentience is significantly lower than it would be if we were attached to our true energetic self, or our true energetic self was attached, wasn't individualized from source. But the processing power here is low because of the low frequencies. So again, it's like it's like the fastest supercomputer being able to access everything, and all we can do when we're here is like write something to communicate, or leaf through the pages of a book. If everything is done by all of us and we all can experience it concurrently, then it means that we've all got access to everything concurrently. So the question of what's the point in us incarnating is a valid question, except we do get higher levels of evolutionary progression as a result of experiencing it in isolation. We become interested in how it would feel to experience it for ourselves. We become interested in seeing how we could do, how we could learn to drive a car, how we could learn to fly an aircraft, how we could learn to swim, how we could climb a mountain, how we could swim a length underwater, how we could scuba dive, how we could lead a group of people or become a manager or a chief executive officer or a doctor or a nurse? How would we do it? And this is the thing. This is the reason why we incarnate. It's not because, yes, of course, we can experience everything concurrently because we're at a higher frequency and every other soul, for example, might have learned to drive a car or might have learned to do something else in a different planetary location at a different frequency within the physical universe. It's because we want to experience it ourselves firsthand. It's all very well standing on a scaffold, looking down at a maze, and thinking, "Oh yes, that's the way from the entrance, and that's how you move through to get to the middle of the maze, and this is how you move back again to come back to an entrance or a different entrance." It's all right seeing that from a high level and understanding things from an easy perspective. But if we were, for example, deaf, dumb and blind, and all we got is our sense of touch, how would we move around the maze? Observing it from above and seeing other people do it is not the same as doing it ourselves. Yes, of course, we experience, learn and evolve from observing other individuals or other souls doing something. But when we are placing ourselves in the position of being deaf, dumb and blind and having no prior knowledge of, because being in the lower frequencies means that our communicative bandwidth is reduced so much that we can barely we do maintain contact clearly with a true energetic self, but we can barely communicate with other entities in higher frequencies. We can barely communicate with our true energetic self. Although we're still linked, we have to work on ourselves and become more spiritual, more service orientated and meditate to allow us to increase our frequency so we can increase our communicative bandwidth. But if we can be here and have no prior knowledge at all, we've not experienced or we've lost the capability of reaching that part of our energetic or sentient memory to be able to access what other souls have experienced, then we are now experiencing it ourselves for the first time. We might do it 2 or 3 times, we might get it wrong half a dozen times or more. But when we're doing it ourselves, we're experiencing difficulty, we're experiencing challenge, we're experiencing learning, we're experiencing perfection whilst we are here. That challenge of doing things ourselves, even though we may be able to access ourselves doing it from the higher frequencies, so therefore you could argue we don't need to do it, but at some point we will have needed to have done it to add that everything happening concurrently, part of us being part of that, doing what we're doing, for instance, walking through the maze with being deaf, dumb and blind. We've had to have done it at one point. So we need to experience detachment from what we are to be able to understand fully from a personal perspective where we're getting no help at all, that being no help from the experiences of other souls, or that we may have done it before and we're trying to do it again. And so it's the first time. The challenge of doing something the first time, the learning opportunity, creates evolutionary content. So that's why we do it. We come here to experience, learn and evolve and gain evolutionary content. And it also it increases the quality of our evolution and subsequently increases the quality of our sentience and the sentient density as well, which is another function. What I would suggest is that, yes, there is no point in being here because everything is done concurrently and everything's in the now. But we have this interest, this desire to experience that which is experienced by others or even ourselves in the now, in an isolated case. Think about it. Think about you being able to fly an airplane. And you can fly lots of different planes. You can fly light aircraft. You can fly passenger aircraft. You can fly fighter aircraft. But then put yourself in a position where all of a sudden you've got to learn how to fly. You haven't got any of this knowledge. How do you do it? We have to go through being taught by somebody who knows how to do it. We have to make mistakes. We have to learn the theory. We have to learn how to navigate. We have to learn what the instruments do. We have to learn how to maneuver the plane. We have to learn how to take off. We have to learn how to land. We have to learn how to deal with different weather conditions. Wind shear, for example, clear air turbulence, rain, blizzards, weather cells, or just calm weather. We need to be able to experience it, to be able to work the way to being a master of it. So we come here to experience, learn and evolve in an isolated way without prior knowledge, to see if we can improve on what we've done before or improve on what others have done and subsequently evolve. We also come here because we're interested. We're interested to see if we could do it. If we've had no prior incarnations where we've learned how to sail a boat, for example, or become an architect or be a doctor. We want to try things for ourselves. We are interested. We have an insatiable interest in experiencing something from an individualized perspective without any assistance of prior knowledge. And in doing so, we increase our evolutionary content. We also increase our sentient quality, as well as our evolutionary quality, and of course the sentient density, which is another function which I'll need to explain at some point in another lecture. But think of it this way. How many times have you, dear listener, wanted to do something yourself so you can experience it yourself? How many times have you seen somebody doing something and thought, I wouldn't mind doing that? It's all right seeing something or being told about something or be seeing it on television or going to see somebody do it, for instance, for real. For example, singing or playing a guitar in concert, driving a racing car, sailing a ship, or controlling a big ocean-going yacht, or a big cruise ship. But what about doing it for yourself? It's a different thing altogether. And although in the higher frequencies, we can access the nowness that gives us the opportunity of experiencing what everybody else has done, all the other souls have done, including us, we might have already skipped an ocean-going yacht. But coming back into the point where we don't know this, because we've lost our communicative bandwidth, because we're in a low frequency, gives us the chance to experience it maybe again in a linear way, and maybe we'll do it slightly differently. And that again increases our evolutionary quality, because we're doing something in a different way. Every time we drive a car differently. Every time we play cricket or football, we play cricket or football differently. It's this variation in experience that we desire, and that gives us an increased level of evolutionary content. It gives us depth of quality of evolution. That's what creates the density of sentience. So experiencing it in a different way, again, without prior knowledge, although we have got prior knowledge in the higher frequencies, but not in these lower frequencies, is desirable to us. From a human standpoint, we might think that's ridiculous, but when we're in the higher frequencies, when we disincarnate, we see things from a completely different picture. Yes, we can experience it all in the now, but we have a severe interest and a desire to experience it individually and without assistance or prior knowledge. Okay. Well, I hope that answers the question for my reader, and I hope it answers the question for you who are listening now. Let's go on to the questions and answers. Hi everybody, it's a pleasure to be with you in this October's World Satsanga, and I've got a number of different questions preloaded, primarily because of the issue we had with sending out the invitation and the Zoom link. So the first questions come through from Ulla, which is a very good question actually. Before I go through the question though, I just want to also thank where are we? Thank Mohan for his question, because that question has been the basis for the lecture, because I think it's a very good question, and therefore I thought it was the best to have as a lecture rather than go through the usual rapid state of questions and answers and partial channeling required or full channeling required to answer the question. So thank Mohan for his contribution, because that's the basis of the lecture. Okay, so first question from Ulla. Previously you said that evolution will happen spontaneously after 1,000 evolutionary cycles. What do you mean? Does it require sentient entities to drive evolution, or is it happening so fast that it just appears to be spontaneous because there is so much sentient volume behind it, creating and absorbing the experiences at an exponential rate of evolution? Please give us a clue. Well, 1,000 evolutionary cycles was a sort of a figure picked out of the air. It could be more, it could be less than that, depends upon how well we work together. But eventually, after around a figure, depending upon how fast we evolve, we will get to a point where, from our perspective, an evolutionary cycle that includes all the content that we're currently experiencing in this particular evolutionary cycle will appear to happen like that, in a blink of an eye, because we'll get it so quickly that we'll move on to the next evolutionary cycle quick. So it's basically about how fast we evolve creates the condition where how fast we go through the next evolutionary cycle. And if we look back at the previous two evolutionary cycles leading up to this one, because this is the third, the first evolutionary cycle was, relatively speaking, slow. The second one was faster because we'd learned and evolved from the first one. And then this one is significantly faster than the second one. So although why significantly faster, it's still trillions upon trillions upon trillions of revolutions of the Earth around the Sun, or years. It's still significantly faster than it was in the second, which is even faster than what it was in the first. So hopefully that assists the answer to that particular question. Okay, I'm gonna get Yara in. Okay, good. Right, next question. Number 2, do the 12 source entities in essence have a higher version of individualized free will, similar to humans at a lower frequency? Because they operate independently, create what they want, oversee their creations, and share their experiences and learning with each other and the origin later, so to speak. How do they stay independent during this whole process without being contaminated by ideas from other entities? You said they are in communion with each other, or communication with each other, and the origin all the time. In fact, the origin, as we experience, learn, and evolve, so does our higher self, so does the source, and so does the origin. So it's all pretty much instantaneous, and as such, they are and have individualized free will to do whatever they want to do with their sentience within the volume of space that their sentience is occupying, to do what to achieve their own version of evolutionary progression. So the fact that they are in contact with each other and basically know what each other's doing, for us it would be a distraction, but for them it's not. It just means that they're aware what's happening, and they could tap into what's happening. And for instance, say source entity 1 could tap into what source entity 9 is doing, and vice versa, or source entity 9 could tap into what source entity 7 is doing, etc., etc. It's just that they're so focused on what they're doing, although they could potentially be distracted, they aren't, because they've got significantly more sentient volume and sentient quality than us. And the last question: what is the origin of Quan Jin, the goddess of compassion and mercy?
Is she projected from Source Entity 1 or from somewhere else? Is there a male counterpart or a twin flame? She hears the sounds of suffering from the human world to heal and protect those in pain and need. And God knows we need her right now. Basically, it's Quan Yin is from what I'm picking up now, is a similar entity to those others who we have received instruction from in terms of how to think, behave, and act, and therefore navigate through our evolutionary cycle, such as, for example, Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad, etc., etc. So it's that level, but also it's another way of another entity that is able to show us what's how the results of our being here, um, and feed that back to us so we start to pay attention to it. So I'm not seeing a component, a counterpart or a twin flame. I'm just seeing that this is an entity that has decided to use a particular method of helping us see ourselves in a way which allows us to recognize what we're doing, and change our ways. Okay, so it's a very good question. That's right. So where's the notes? Is there any notes here? Let's find them. No. Oh, chats, here we go. Using the wrong words. Okay, so next one's from Daniel. Where all the souls created at the same time? If this is true, how is it that some are far more advanced than we are? How do they achieve their high level of consciousness? Why are we not all the same level of development? Are their souls more advanced than archangels, Elohim, ascended masters, etc.? Are there any souls who sit at the right hand of God? Does God have favorites? God has all of us as favorites because we're individually part of it. We're individualized units of sentience of source. And so we're all source, basically. In essence, the creation process or the individualization process that the source gave or went through created a condition where, in actual fact, it made some mistakes because it didn't actually keep its eye on the ball. And so although the vast majority of those true energetic selves that were individualized from itself became equal, there were those who didn't have the same sentient volume or sentient density, and they ended up being the animals, the souls that we use, the true energetic cells for the souls we call backfield people. As say again, the animals, the plants, the minerals, and then anything that's associated with the structure, such as planets, galaxies, etc., etc., etc. So they were created in sort of in a level of imperfect perfection, so to speak. Those that are below us can eventually evolve to the next level upwards, for instance. So the animals can evolve to either to a human level or to the same level as backfield, depending upon how they do their personal progression and their pathway. But we all evolve in a different level. We all evolve based upon how we are interacting with each other, what circumstances we create, how we navigate through those circumstances within the environments we find ourselves. So depending upon how we want to experience that interaction and the depth of experience, and therefore how long we want to experience it for, depends upon how evolved we become. So there are souls who evolve really quickly, and there are souls that evolve slowly. But it doesn't mean that those that are evolving slowly are any less favored by source, because we're all favored by source. It's just that some of us are taking longer time than those who are taking a shorter time. And actually, those who take a shorter time sometimes experience a deeper and more concise level of understanding and therefore evolutionary content as a function of taking longer than those who go faster. For example, if part of my individualized free will was to travel from New York to Seattle, and the journey gave me a certain level of evolutionary content, and if I flew there, I'd have achieved the travel from New York to Seattle. However, if I decide to cycle there, or go on a bus, or go on a motorbike, or hitchhike, or drive there, or take a mixture of all those three, or spend several months in one particular place, I'll get a depth of experience associated with those different ways, and therefore a deeper depth of evolutionary content associated with it. Okay, Good question. Next one's from Bill. As we are all ultimately aspects of source, why is it the source has within itself such utter and complete dysfunction is expressed through the human condition? Because it allows it. And it allows it because it gives a depth of experience. If everything was in the perfect state, in the yang state, for example, we wouldn't experience the yin, and therefore it would be unbalanced. So even though things are in a complete disarray at the moment, the function of us experiencing disarray allows us to experience everything being in command and control and a good state of beingness and appreciate it. So we understand more sometimes by being less, if that makes any sense. So we're allowed to do whatever we want to because we've got individualized free will. The hope is that collectively we start to realize together that some of the results of our actions are detrimental to not just one of us, but all of us. And so collectively we will start to think, behave, and act in a more reasonable way and one that is of more service to each other. Okay, next question from Daniel. Previous Satsangas, your comment about the answers to our questions caused me to contemplate on why you answered questions the way you did. Thank you. You said something to the effect, these answers were not or may not have been what you expected. Answers were different than expected for sure, but maybe startling in some cases, causing me to pay attention to what you're saying in your answers, sitting on every word. Can you give some insight into how these questions are answered? Where does most of the information come from, and how do you tap into it, seemingly with this little effort? I'm continuously connected to source. Originally, I wasn't. Well, we're all connected to source, but it's the communicative bandwidth which changes depending upon your evolutionary condition and constant meditation. If you look at any guru, certainly any Hindu guru, they'll say the only way to samadhi or connection with God is meditation, to shut out the physical and concentrate on that which is beyond the physical. And that's right. So I maintain this connection even when I'm doing this or when I'm typing up to do my work. The answers to the questions being different are a function of what you think the answer is going to be. And what I give you is what I'm picking up, not what you think the answer is going to be. So it's as simple as that. Sometimes we have a preconceived understanding of what we think the answer is going to be. And when the answer is something different, we start to think, oh, did I get it right or did I get it wrong? So, and also sometimes I explain things in a way which is slightly different. Maybe it's in examples that we can understand from a physical perspective, based upon what we've collectively experienced during our incarnations. And sometimes it's based upon the information I've gained from the books, writing the books and the communication with the source and the origin and the other entities. And so the nomenclature used might not be consistent with what you would expect. Okay, good. Again from Bill. I assume some true energetic selves are more evolved than others. Yes. If so, how does that come about? Are testes or aspects that occupy the higher frequency universes more evolved, with the highest, the most evolved, or just different? It's all about efficiency. Basically, just because a true energetic self is evolved, it doesn't mean that the depth or quality of evolution is equal to another one on the same level. It simply means they've evolved to a certain level. Increased density or depth or quality of evolution creates wisdom. And it's a little bit like learning to drive. You can learn to drive a car and you can drive a car competently all your life. Or you can learn to do tricks with it, or you can learn to rally with it, or you can learn to race it. You can learn to understand it from a different perspective. And that's the depth of experience, which creates a depth of quality and evolution as well. And so, depending upon how we achieve our evolutionary content during a set period, depends upon how we can accelerate our evolutionary level. So just because you've got two true energetic selves at the same level, doesn't mean that one's is equal to that in reality. Although it is in from an evolutionary perspective, the depth of evolution might not be. It might also be that this particular true energetic self, being a higher level of evolution, might be equal to this one, who's got a lower level of evolution because of the depth of and quality of evolutionary content associated with what it's accrued over the various different interactions with the multiverse that it's had and the aspects or souls that it's projected into the multiverse. Okay. Next part from Bill. Did Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad, etc., waste their time? While most of humanity seems to be reasonable throughout the ages up until present day, an ever-present minority, usually in the form of tyrannical governments and people who plant evil, to assure that millions live and die in misery? Or is it that's a good thing, so people eventually learn and abandon bad behavior? Again, we allow governments to be in place. So in effect, it's our poor choices and our poor administration of the justification for those choices, which allows those individuals to be in place and cause bad government or bad control or bad leadership. And so eventually we will create a condition, a series of systems where if, for example, there are a number of individuals who go for presidency or prime minister or leadership, whatever, in a country or location or a planet, go for those positions, and the last couple that come out the other side actually don't meet the criteria, we will have a checksum which will allow things to start again, because actually not although these two individuals out of the 10 or so candidates have proven to be the ones who've risen to the surface with all the voting, if they're still not good enough, we'll start again, and the objective will be to get a fresh group of applicants, not the first 10. So it's about us understanding how we want to vote for and how we want to have in terms of processes and how we can get our leadership in front of us. We want to have people like the Buddha, like Jesus, like Muhammad, and other individuals of note who made significant differences to people. Mother Teresa, for example. Greta Thunberg is making a big difference. Even David Attenborough, fighting for the environment. These are people we should be paying attention to as our leaders, not those who govern the taxes and the management of the infrastructure. Okay. Right. Next question. What did Jesus mean when he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me"? Basically, he was saying, I'm an example. I'm an example of how to experience, learn, and evolve, how to navigate through your incarnation. So it's not a case of ego. It's a case of I've managed it, copy what I do, and you'll manage it. And so it's saying that his route is a route towards connection with Source or God. That was the same for the Buddha. That was the same for Muhammad and countless other individuals in the past. They had different ways of doing it, each of them being successful, some of them being faster than others, but all of them providing a route to Source, a route to connectivity with Source. The issue is mankind got in the way and decided that these ideals or these processes or these methods of living needed to be justified or fought for, and they started to place one on top of each other, which was not the case. They're all equal, and they all provide a different way to get to Source. Some are slightly faster, but that doesn't matter because each of us have a different way to experience things anyway. So what would be a good route for one of us might be not so optimal for somebody else. Okay. Andy B. So thanks, Bill, for all those questions. Brilliant. Thank you. There are thousands of near-death experience stories, and many of them include returning to a heavenly environment that is earthly, but is a divine state of earth. There are schools, buildings, cities, loved ones, but also guides and centers for life reviews described in many of them. Are these mostly just projections of their sentience, or are these real places in the energetic? These are us creating what we expect to see when we pass. We are so immersed in our incarnation and what we're taught by our elders and by our authority figures that we create what we expect to see. So we expect to see an angelic version or a utopian version of the earth, because that's what we expect to see. We expect to see angels, we expect to see God, we expect to see loved ones. In essence, it's energy, and we experience connection through understanding this the signature of those other entities that are around us based upon their sentient quality, density, volume, and the associated evolutionary content and volume. So that's the reality of it, which is formless from our perspective. But when we get these stories of, oh, I saw Uncle Jim or Auntie Joan there, maybe these were their helpers, helping them break away from the illusion that they've created based upon their education whilst they're here. But in essence, there are locations where we do go through what we've experienced together with our guide and helpers to help us understand whether we were happy with what we did, whether we want to do slightly differently, do it again, or whether we can move on and do something different instead. But it's not in anywhere near the same visual appearance as what we think it is. It's nothing like the Earth or anything that we could see in the physical universe. Okay. Good question. Daniel again. Turmoil we see in politics, where the financial world and almost everything seems to be falling apart and mixed with chaotic behavior. War and rumors of wars are all over the planet. What encouragement, what actions will be more helpful for us to alleviate this darkness? We need to work together. Last night I went with Celia and we saw a superb film called The Old Oak. It's a bit of an arts council film, but it's where a group of refugees from Syria moved into a rather depraved area in Manchester or Newcastle. Maybe in Newcastle, and how originally they were castigated and rejected, but eventually they started to knit together because the area was deprived and they'd had all their life taken apart from them by being pushed out of their country in Syria, and so eventually they started to work together and create a functional community, working in communion with each other. And it's all about forgetting how good you think you are, how better you think you are, whether one person's religion is better than somebody else. It's about forgetting that and creating a level playing field and accepting everybody is equal, irrespective of whether they're a trillionaire. We haven't got any of those yet, I don't think. Billionaires, certainly. Or whether you're somebody who sweeps the streets. We're all equal. And if we treat everybody in equality and we're of service to each other, irrespective of whether we think, well, they can look after themselves because they've got so many 100,000 in the bank, they don't need to have help. They don't need for me to go down to the shops for them. That's the wrong thought process. If they've asked for help, we give help, and that's the way we should think of it. And this is the way we should be observed. And as people see us doing good things and being of service to others, people copy, and that's the way to move forward. And when we start to do that, the greater population will start to copy it, and those leaders who are leading us in error will eventually be voted out, and will start to get down the path of creating the rising frequencies that we need to be able to ascend to the next level. Okay, question from Andy B. And there's a couple of questions here. I've heard some Buddhists believe that once somebody becomes a Buddha, now a Buddha means a self-realized or a self-aware individual, okay? They no longer have to incarnate, but choose where they want to go in the multiverse to free other imprisoned minds. My question is then, what kind of work do ascended masters and those who have evolved beyond the physical actually do? Are they still being of service in this way in the energetic realms? For example, what is Yogananda doing in this moment? Well, basically, an ascended master is basically a soul or a trinetic self whose smaller aspects of sentience have evolved to the point where they've ascended past the need to incarnate. They have mastered incarnation. That's where the word ascended master comes from. Some of them do choose to come and help. Yogananda is one. Some of the white children, Greta Thunberg is one. The body of Greta Thunberg has a soul that's a white soul to come and help us. And there's others as well. There's a few others, and they're in different parts of the world. Eventually, there'll be 12. They come and to be service to us because we're in a rather unique situation in this particular frequency where we're working with individualized free will, and we need to overcome the desire to be individual as a result of it. So we need to be able to work in communion rather than individuality. And that's the whole point of it. And when we start to work in communion, we will collectively succeed in managing to ascend past the need to incarnate at this particular frequency level. But some of them do be of service, and some of them just move on. Some of them continue to ascend in terms of their own evolutionary progression by continuing to work in the multiverse rather than other frequencies within the physical universe, or any of the other lower universes within the multiverse. And Yogananda, I'm really asked where Yogananda is. Let's have a look. I know he's not going to come. I know the soul that was at Yogananda is not going to come back. I am seeing that it's decided to stay for a while with the soul that was its teacher, Sri Yukteswar and Lahiri Mahashai. They are basically part of a similar energy, and they're staying together. They're contemplating what they've achieved still. Relatively speaking, they only left their incarnation not long ago, really. I think it was 1952 that Yogananda left the planet. So it's not long ago. It's only 70 years ago. So 71 years ago. And they're just contemplating. They're in the round about the fifth full dimension, looking around there and just contemplating what they could do if they wanted to, or how they could move forwards. Next question. Some say someone is in a coma for 30 days before they die. Does the soul leave the body at that start of those 30 days, or does it leave once the body finally dies? If it leaves, what does the soul experience for those 30 days? Well, in the body, in the brain, and the body is basically virtually inert. When it's a short period of time and a soul is out of the body and the body is in a coma, it is usually the case that the soul is deciding whether it wants to stay or go. Usually, if a body's inert or it's in a coma, then that soul has reached a termination juncture where it can leave the incarnation without accruing any downstream evolutionary debt to those others that it would have interacted with over the rest of its downstream incarnation. So they are out of the body, although still connected to the body, because the body wouldn't exist without the soul. It wouldn't work. So although you see soul bodies that are in a coma for decades, for example, the soul still hasn't decided to leave properly. So that's why the body still exists. Okay. So that's the reason why we still get soul, bodies still there for a long time. And sometimes bodies can be inert for decades, and then all of a sudden they'll wake up because the soul hasn't decided yet. So in this instance, in this particular example, the soul is still considering whether it wants to come back to the incarnation and accept another experiential workload, so to speak. And it could be 30 days, it could be 30 years, depending on how long the thought process is. Mirella, thank you, Mirella. Were there ascended masters in Americas? Who were they? Were they Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan? I can't say these words. Huiracocha in Mexico and South America. These are individuals of note. I'm not seeing them as being ascended masters per se. Clearly, there's been an ascended masters associated with every major civilization on the planet, not just the Aborigines in Australia or the original civilizations in America. They are the Peruvians, the Aztecs, the Toltecs, those sorts of things. They've all had their ascended masters. I'm not picking up these names as being part of the ascended master group. These seem to be of individuals of note, like priests from known history. Okay. Daniel, again. Okay, we're about to run out of time. We've got 9.5 minutes, so I'll have to be a bit quick. Okay. Daniel, do you ever get disappointed with personal attacks and even unkind words people say about your teachings and revelations, the work you do in the same time you put into helping us? Some people reject this high-level information outright. and very strongly. Some of my close friends, when I share some of the delights I find in this training, appear to be prideful, fearful, or just habit patterned enough to return to so-called traditional dogma. Standard rhetoric has for the most part put us where we are. How do we uplift some of our friends without upsetting them? Learn to know who to talk to. There are those who are expansive and therefore will respond to the information. There are those that won't. It doesn't worry me. All I know is that if somebody rejects it, some little part of what I've said will be lodged in there, like a little, basically, like a little seed. So as far, from my perspective, something will have happened, and it will happen to them. Maybe not in this incarnation, but further on down. So don't worry about it. I just, I'm just happy that one or two people read the books or listen to the satsangas or participate in the satsangas, such as you wonderful people, and or attend the workshops. I don't get discouraged. I just feel sorry for them that they've not allowed themselves to open up to the possibility of the greater reality. Andy B, with a question: a well-reputed and somewhat famous channel called Bashar said that there is a 95% chance an alien civilization will make global contact with the Earth by the end of 2026. Have you picked up on this possibility? Well, there's aliens already here. It's just at a higher frequency, and they're keeping out of the way at the moment. So they're observing at a frequential level beyond our physical sensory detecting range, and therefore our mechanical range as well, because all of our tools, all of our senses are based upon the five senses that we've got as human beings. So in essence, they're already here. Depending upon whether we go down the terrible route of a significant level of conflict, and I'm talking about a world nuclear war, we would be left alone. So unless we go down this particular route, we'll be left alone. So I'm not picking up anything for 2026, although there is bound to be individuals who are in communication with such entities and can communicate with such entities, and I've seen some of them myself as well. So it's but not physically. They're not from our perspective. They're in the higher frequency rather than the gross physical. Okay, got a couple of questions to go through now. This is from Yara. What to do in such disarray? Let inner activists loose, let organizations, meditations, such things keep eyes on the prize, surrender to complete positive trust as much as possible. A lot of lessons recently seem to have been themed to stay out of it, which I have been slightly confused about. Would it be safe, right, and worthwhile to attempt to connect with ascended souls who have lost their lives in war as victims or soldiers, who now have clarity and would wish to change what their lives were or used to be, to clear karma, set things right, to enlist their energetic help? It is best for us to navigate around negativity without doubt, and be the good example, the good soul, and so therefore maintain connectivity with good individuals, with good company. If we could channel such individuals, and one such individual and others might be the subject of the book I'm going to write after this one I'm finishing, then it will be useful to get their viewpoint based upon them being now in a helicopter viewpoint of where we are. So I think that if we could channel previous individuals, and there are individuals who've channeled people who died in wars who are of significance or just on the ground, it would be useful. Whether they would be more efficient in communicating how we hurt ourselves or pain ourselves more than we can actually see is difficult to understand. But I would say any help is better than no help. I'm going to answer Daniel's question first because it's the last, and then I'll go back to Bill's. Are our guides more advanced than us? They are usually more evolved than us, but they're also they're outside of the evolutionary cycle from our perspective. But they gain evolution by working with us and others. Okay. There's Bill's last question. Have people of Venezuela, North Korea, etc., incarnated there because they need to have the experience of living in totalitarian states, as opposed to people incarnating or migrating to relatively free states who are somehow blessed? Yes. If so, then does that mean that we should be unconcerned about these people and that those who subjugate them? No. Basically, they've gone to experience existence in these environments to experience a different viewpoint and incarnation. If we, um, in our blessed state, so to speak, in our state of authority and freedom, choose to help them in some way, not in a military sense, but in an example way, by being kind and caring and service orientated, then they can experience the yin and the yang together, and so will we. So in effect, rather than just experiencing one side, and that's all they experience in totality, which is what some of them do, and of course, thousands and millions of souls do that, and then come back and experience it in the other side in another incarnation. We could do it all together, and this would create a wonderful melting pot of understanding between us all. So, in effect, the objective is to see what's wrong and not combat it, but give example of why it's not right, and then work with those who are experiencing incorrect thought processes and help them to experience correct thought processes, but not in a forceful way, in an interactive and example directed way, because people don't like to be pushed, specifically if they can't see where we're coming from. But if we lead by example, now that's the most powerful teacher on this planet, leading by example and being the good soul and the soul who's in service to others, irrespective of whether they get any thanks or any recognition. Just being the good soul, just being of service. If we can all do that, then even in our lifetime, we might see the start of heaven and earth utopia, the dawn of the Aquarian age happening right now. Okay, well, thank you very much for your questions. They were wonderful. Actually, they're really, really good. I'm really pleased with these, and I'm going to begin to peel off now because I don't want to be just cut off because it's a bit embarrassing when Zoom just cuts us off. We have to disappear. So, God's love to you all. Source's love, and thank you very much for participating. And looking forward to November.
Welcome to the meditation. And as you're all aware of, no doubt, around the world, of the conflict that's happening in the Middle East and the conflict that's happening in Ukraine with Russia and the Ukrainians, we've now got it, of course, with the Israelis and the Palestinians, which for me is disappointing. 10, 12 years ago, we had the opportunity of being higher frequency and we were going higher frequency, but we seem to be going lower and lower in the frequencies, further than even I anticipated myself. So what I want us to do with this meditation is to basically concentrate collectively together by using event space to make us all be in the same point in the linear space-time continuum, to send understanding of who and what we are to all these people around the world who just don't get it, just don't understand that we're all part of the same thing, and therefore don't recognise that if you're hurting somebody else in a different country, you're actually hurting yourself, because we're all part of the same source. So let's just meditate on sending out the knowledge that we're all one, and therefore why are we fighting against ourselves? So just sit in your straight-backed chair, or if on the ground, sit in a lotus or half lotus or cross-legged. But in both cases, sit with your back straight and your neck straight, your feet flat on the ground if you're on the straight-backed chair, your hands palm uppermost on your upper thighs, your eyes closed but gently focused on the origin of your spiritual or third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And just concentrate on broadcasting clarity, understanding, knowledge. Recognize that although we're individualized units of sentience from our true energetic selves, and our true energetic selves are also individualized units of sentience from Source, that in essence, we're all Source. And if we're all Source, then why do we fight against each other? We're fighting because we're ignorant. We're in ignorance of who and what we are because of the low frequencies. But just send this mantra. We are one with the Source, and the Source is one with us. We are the Source. Therefore, we're all one. There's no brothers and sisters because we are one. No brothers and sisters, no friends, no colleagues, because we are those friends and colleagues and brothers and sisters, and they are us. So there's no individuality. We're all one. And we're all one collectively with our Creator. So if we're fighting against each other, we're fighting against not only ourselves, we're also fighting our Creator, which is us, which we're collectively part of. So let's just continue this. We are one with the Source is one with us, we are the Source. Just keep mentally chanting, we are one with the Source is one with us, we are the Source. Just keep mentally chanting that. And visualize or use your mentally spoken words to achieve the same thing. That we suddenly start to wake up. That we suddenly start to realize that we are all one. And we are honored to be incarnate on this planet, this beautiful environment, which we're abusing right now. And we wake up to that as well. We can still progress, we can still have technology, but we need to do it in a mature way, caring way, one where we create things without damage, one where we work together without envy, jealousy, ego, one-upmanship. We are all one. We are one with the Source is one with us, we are the Source. We love everybody. We love each other, we love ourselves, we love our environment. We recognize that even our environment is us. Everything is Source. The planets and the solar systems in our galaxy is Source. All the galaxies in these particular low frequencies of the physical universe is source. All the planets and galaxies and other manifestations of locally low frequency in the other frequencies associated with the physical universe, those that we can't see, are also source, part of the source's structure. All the other universes, including the parallel ones created by event space, are also source. Our sentience, our small volume of sentience that's separated or isolated, individualized, projected into the physical, is ultimately source. When we wake up and understand that we're all one, we are one with the source is one with us, we are the source, all fighting will stop. All disagreements will stop. All anger will stop. Understanding that in fighting we're fighting ourselves will cause us to understand that fighting is a waste of an incarnation, a waste of opportunity to evolve. Yes, we do evolve through experiencing even atrocities, but the real evolution is in recognizing who and what we are whilst we're in these low frequencies and actively avoiding aggressive interaction. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Just keep repeating this mantra over and over again. Don't stop. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. See everybody in the world starting to hear this in their mind's ear. I think the new way of saying it is it's a mind worm, where you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, you can't get rid of it. Let's make we are one with the source is one with us, we are the source, a mind worm. One that is there all the time, one that is there to initiate and invoke our realization of who and what we are, and that we're just damaging ourselves, and that even damaging the environment is damaging ourselves. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Broadcast this delight as we realize who we are, who and what we are. We suddenly wake up to find that everybody around us is us. Everything around us is us. Aggression is futile. There is only love. There is only love for us. Love for source, and therefore love for us, because we are source. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Just keep chanting that in your minds, with your mind's voice. Visualize everybody suddenly waking up and realizing what we are, laying down their arms, recycling the material, using it to create things that we all need, helping others in the world whose environment is not so fruitful as where we are. Help them to become able to look after themselves and create a fruitful environment where we all work together to make sure that Crops can be grown anywhere in the country or the landmass or the planet. Nobody goes hungry. Nobody has no money. Everybody's looked after by everybody else. We're all of service to each other because we are all each other. We are all one. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Just see the delight, the joy, as we suddenly all start to wake up, realise who we are. All those weapons have been put down, everybody's hugging each other, everybody's shaking their heads in disbelief of what we were doing when we were existing in isolation. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Just keep mentally chanting that mantra. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Visualizing everybody all over the world, irrespective of what they're doing, waking up and realizing that we're all one. Tears in their eyes, tears of joy as they suddenly get it. They suddenly realize who and what we are. And we all start to embrace each other and work together for the benefit of all of us, working in communion. The whole world works in communion. And in doing so, we become mature. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Feel the joy in us all suddenly waking up and understanding who, what we are, and embracing each other. Everybody is in love with everybody because we're all the same thing. We're all one. We're all one with the source, and the source is one with us, we are the source. Feel the joy as we globally start to wake up by your work, by your meditation. You can do this meditation every day if you wish, amplifying the energies, the higher frequencies associated with realizing, the realization, the self and collective realization of who we are. That we're all one with the source is one with us, we are the source. Feel it in your hearts now, the joy of self-realization. Recognizing that we're all one. We're all everybody. Not just on this planet, but other planets and other frequencies within the physical universe. And those other souls, or true energetic selves, that are individualized in other parts of the multiversal environment. We are all one. Transmit the joy you feel in self-realizing that you are all one, and we're all one. And we're all one with the source, and the source is one with us, we are the source. Transmit the joy as well. The joy of suddenly realizing the waking up and the effect it will have on everybody, because everybody will wake up. Everybody will experience a rapture, a collective ascension. Feel the joy. And so you can practice this meditation anytime you want to. Every day will be very, very good. Even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes. We are one with the source is one with us, we are the source. projecting the awakening, realizing of who and what we are, and the joy associated with who we, recognizing that we're all one. So slowly come back into the room that you're in. Slowly open your eyes. Take a drink of water to help ground you. And pass this recording on, pass this meditation on for everybody. Everybody and anybody can do it. We can start thinking in this way, we will surely mature and ascend the frequencies fast whilst we're in this era of ours. And everybody will start to wake up. Everybody will be in disbelief of what we've done to each other, but in joy that we've finally discovered each other, and we all understand that we're all one, that we're all the source, and the source is us. Namaste to you all. Source's love to you all. And look forward to working with you in November's Satsanga. Did you see the aliens in Crete?